Hi everyone and welcome back to the Data Football Club. It took me more than a week to release this video as the pain was too sharp after this historical final, but now I'm back for more videos on the Data Football Club channel and it's time for me to stop having dark thoughts and analyze this World Cup. We are going to start with some general stats on the World Cup with a focus on the French team, and then we will assess the predictions done before and throughout the competition. So let's get the ball rolling. Let's start with the big figure. With around $300 billion spent by Qatar to organize this World Cup, this was the most expensive FIFA World Cup ever organized by a huge margin. To give you a comparison, Russia spent $14.2 billion on the 2018 World Cup, so only about 5% of what Qatar spent. It is highly probable that Qatar won't get any direct return on investment, but I guess some things are less tangible than money. As well as being the most expensive World Cup ever, it was also the shortest one since it became a 32-team tournament in 1998. It was held during 28 days between the 20th of November and the 18th of December. During the group stages, up to 4 games were being played during the same day, spanning over 11 hours. I guess one of the reasons they could do that is because the 8 stadiums were so close together, which made it theoretically possible for football fans to attend all matches of the day in 4 different stadiums. Coming back to the actual game, with 8 goals, Kylian Mbappé is the best goal scorer of the competition. He scored 3 during the final, something that hasn't been done since the English player Geoff Hurst in 1966 in the final against Germany. To properly appreciate how extraordinary that is, let's remind everyone that Cristiano Ronaldo, who is one of the best players of all time, despite appearing in 5 World Cups and 8 knockout games, never scored a goal in a knockout round of a World Cup, and probably never will. Mbappé, at the age of 23 years old, already has scored 12 goals in World Cups. If he scores 5 more, he will beat the record of Miroslav Klose, who scored 16 goals in total. However, even for him, it seems like the all-time record of goals scored during a World Cup from Just Fontaine, who scored 13 goals in 1958 during the 6 games played by the French team, will remain unbeatable. Now, let's talk a bit about the records that were beaten within the French national team. First, Olivier Giroud, with his goal against Poland, became the best goal scorer of all time for France. He ended the tournament with 4 goals, which made his total for France a whopping 53 goals. 2 more than the great Thierry Henry. Second, let's talk about the player who completely amazed me during this World Cup, up until the final, where he probably played his worst game for France ever, Antoine Griezmann. He now has the most assists for France, with 1 more than Thierry Henry. Moving on to the captain Hugo Lloris, who is as good at making critical saves during the game as he is bad at saving penalties. Yes, I'm a bit salty with the final still. Who now has the record of appearances for France with 145 games played in total, 3 more than Lilian Thuram. Finally, the second French goalkeeper, Steve Mandanda, being 37 years old, is the oldest player to ever play a World Cup match for France. It was to lose against Tunisia, but still a nice record to hold. Some of you may know that I produced around 2 videos per day throughout the World Cup with the results and highlights of each game of the day as well as predictions on future games. The fun part is now to analyze the predictions I've made to assess how wrong I was. Before doing so, I'd like to talk about something more general. In statistics, and in particular Bayesian statistics, we like to distinguish 2 types of probabilities, what is called a priori and a posteriori. One definition could be for the first one before anything happens, and the second after something happened. I agree with you that it's very broad, but it holds a very interesting idea. The idea that there are 2 types of predictions we can make on a phenomenon. A prediction before any observation or information, and a prediction knowing critical information. An example could be the probability of Senegal winning the World Cup versus the probability of Senegal winning the World Cup knowing that Mane is injured. The definition of a priori is quite fluid in other domains, but in statistics there is one crucial word: knowing. From that example, you might think that a posteriori prediction will always be more accurate than a priori, but sometimes observations can be very misleading, particularly when a Frenchman is making predictions on the French team. In summary, a posteriori gives you more information to use for a prediction, and it's up to you to use that info correctly. One example where observations helped me make an accurate prediction during the World Cup was the 1-0 victory of Cameroon versus Senegal. I assessed the probability of Cameroon winning, knowing that Neymar was injured and Vincent Aboubakar was in great form, and that led me to think that it was much higher than the a priori probability, and therefore concluded that Cameroon could win that game and predicted the exact score. But a posteriori is not always possible. Predicting Saudi Arabia would beat Argentina is more of a stretch. And of course, football is far from being easily predictable, and that's what makes this sport so exciting. What I'm trying to say here is merely that we can try to minimize the uncertainty even though there is always some randomness we can never grasp. Now that that's said, let's talk about the a priori predictions I proposed for this World Cup, or in other words, before anything happened. The video is here if you would like to watch it and also learn about a quantitative model for simulating the World Cup. I'm not going to walk you through all the predictions I've made, but I'd like to highlight 3 accurate as well as 3 inaccurate predictions now that the competition is over. Starting off with the accurate ones. The most accurate one, no matter how much this hurts to say, I put Argentina as the final winner. Interestingly, the quantitative model evaluated that there was 14% chance for Argentina to win before the World Cup, so less chance than Brazil, who was the main favorite, and more chance than France, who was the third favorite. My second accurate prediction, or rather kind of accurate, is that I also predicted Argentina would beat France, even though I thought it would arrive much earlier in the knockout rounds. Finally, I also predicted that Senegal would go through the knockout rounds, which was something that the quantitative model thought highly unlikely. And I guess it was even less likely without Mane on the team. Let's now look at my 3 main inaccuracies, and well, let's start off with the biggest one. My Belgian friends really let me down on this one. My a priori prediction was to see them go all the way to the final, but I couldn't have been farther from the truth as they did not even qualify to the round of 16. I guess this is another example where a posteriori probability assessment would have been very useful. Knowing that there was a really bad atmosphere in the Belgian team with some players not talking to each other, it was not the best conditions to play a World Cup and certainly not a respectable way to end the story of this beautiful golden generation. My second inaccuracy happened with Switzerland versus Portugal, which is a round of 16 game I accurately predicted would happen, but which really did not unravel the way I thought. By losing 6-1 against Portugal, Switzerland seemed to completely have given up the game after the 2 first Portuguese goals. Now that I'm saying that, I feel like I'm overestimating the chances of all French-speaking teams, including Belgium, Switzerland, Canada, and of course France. So I really need to correct that bias in my future predictions. Finally, like Belgium, Denmark really had a bad World Cup. I predicted they would go all the way to the semi-final, and I was very far from the truth again. With 2 defeats and a draw, Denmark really underperformed in this World Cup, and I'm still unsure why, to be honest. Let's now move on to the quantitative model assessments, which is again detailed in my previous video. I wanted to look at the top 3 overperforming teams and top 3 underperforming in this World Cup based on the likelihood of them reaching each round of the World Cup. Let's start with the overperformers. In third position, Australia, with only 23% chance to qualify for the round of 16. I was really impressed with Australia's performance, who beat both Tunisia and Denmark, and started off really good against France. It's a shame they didn't carry on against Argentina, as it might have led to a happier ending for me. Second is Croatia, with only 8% chance to reach the semi-final. I could have put Croatia in one of my least accurate predictions, as I really thought they wouldn't even go through to the knockout round. But they have shown great preparation, and Livakovic had a great time in goals. And at the top is, of course, Morocco, who only had 3% chance to reach the semi-final. The first African team to ever reach the Final Four of a World Cup, and what a team that was. Amrabat, the best defensive midfielder of the World Cup, Hakim Ziyech at the top of his form, and the 2 Angers players, Unai and Boufal, who surprised everyone with their talent and commitment. Oh, and I cannot forget to mention Yassine Bounou, for me, the best goalkeeper of the World Cup. Only conceded 3 goals, 2 from France, and an own goal during the group stage. For those of you who like manga, he kind of makes me think of Luffy in One Piece. Not only did he seem to have elastic arms to save all attempts, but also whatever was thrown at him, he was just having a laugh. Now, for the underperformers, we are going to talk about 3 teams who were very likely to qualify to the round of 16, but did not. In third place, we have Germany, who was evaluated to have a 70% chance to qualify. Germans were in a tough group with Spain, Japan, and Costa Rica, but it still seems so unreal that they did not qualify with the quality of their starting 11. Same thing can be said for Denmark, with 75% chance to advance to the knockout round. I still cannot believe that after beating France twice in the Nations League, making it seem so easy to tear down the previous world champion, they couldn't win against Tunisia or Australia. And finally, probably the biggest upset of the World Cup, Belgium, with 82% chance to qualify, was eliminated by Croatia and Morocco, 2 of the 4 semi-finalists. To conclude this section, I would like to briefly analyze the a posteriori predictions I made throughout the World Cup, so knowing what happened in the previous matches of the competition. For the 64 games played, we can start by looking at what we can expect with a uniformly random prediction, meaning that you would predict the outcome of the game with 1/3 probability for each outcome, win, draw, or lose. Well, with that strategy, you could expect 64 divided by 3, so around 21 correct predictions. The predictions I made throughout the World Cup yielded 34 correct outcomes, so much more than the first strategy would expect. We can also highlight the 8 exact scores, including very unlikely outcomes such as Cameroon versus Brazil or Senegal versus Ecuador. Of course, I was caught up by my French bias and changed my mind for the final, but I was always going to do that. Another point of comparison, which might be more interesting, is a model that would always predict the likeliest team to win based on odds. And in that case, we arrive at the exact same number of correct outcomes as my predictions, with 34, which also shows how unpredictable some of the games in this World Cup were. That's it for this World Cup analysis, but before ending the video, I wanted to say a last word on the experience I had covering this World Cup. With more than 10,000 views on YouTube and about the same on my other social network accounts, I thank you all so very much for your support, and I hope you will continue to follow my videos. I'm going to release a video very soon with a new series called Club ID, which will focus on specific clubs. The purpose of this new series is to walk you through the story of a football club that I think deserve to be told, and in particular, clubs that are not the most well known to football fans throughout the world. I'm sure I'll be talking about Liverpool or Marseille at some point, but I'll start with clubs who have huge fan bases, either locally or globally, and have a great football history. I also want to cover clubs from continents that do not receive a lot of visibility here in Europe, such as Asian, African, and American clubs, where the fervor is at least as much, if not more, than in France, for example. You can already start to let me know in the comments which club you think I should cover in this new series. We have also doubled the amount of subscribers on the channel, and even if it may not look like a lot to you, I am so grateful for the people from the US, India, Indonesia, Brazil, and of course France who started watching the content. At least that's what YouTube tells me you are all from, so if you are from another place, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button and share it to your teammates. And if you want to join the Data Football Club, please subscribe and don't forget to click on the bell icon. See you soon for another video where football's the game and data's the goal. Bye bye!